All right. So the second part of the Trader Joe roadmap is Joenomics V2. So stake Joe for Rocket Joe allocation credits or stablecoin revenue share. And then the bullet points I have are stake your Joe to enter the Joe ecosystem. You can then farm stable Joe or farm Rocket Joe or do a mixture of both. Soft cooldowns implemented to encourage longer term staking. What is soft cooldown? Mechanisms in place to prevent gaming between staking options. Staking user experience enhanced to improve accessibility for new DeFi users. So what's up with Joenomics V2?
Basically, yeah, Joenomics V2. I think this is a long time coming. The thing with our tokenomics is based off sushi. We're almost exactly the same. The only thing that's different is that instead of 250 million supply, we have 500 million supply, but we still have X Joe, which is very exactly the same as X sushi. Now, the big criticism of sushi tokenomics is that it's people say it's not sustainable. It's quote unquote farm and dump token. There's no utility, blah blah blah. So we've been listening to the community for months now, and this is something that's been on our mind since I would say mid-October. Tokenomics is such a difficult thing that everyone has an opinion, and it's also a lot of like recency bias. Like people say, oh, you should do this because Curve is doing it and they're doing fantastically well. And everyone has, it's more like, there's no hard science behind tokenomics. It's more like philosophy, right? So there's always different sides debating. What we've done over the past few months is to really listen to what people want and talk about, but also just look on what is out there right now and trying to figure out the best way to do things. And one of the biggest things that people asked for is a shift towards Vnomics. So that's like the V curve, V platypus kind of tokenomics, because they say,
I don't know what that is. Can you explain like on 5, or is it not possible?
Yeah, so V curve, Curve, right? Curve finance. So
yes, yeah.
V curve is like you stake Curve and you stake it for different periods of time. You can stake it anywhere from 1 week to 4 years. And the longer you stake it, the more boosted rewards you get. What does that mean? So if you don't stake your Curve, you only get like the flat rate of 1x, right? But if you stake your Curve and get V curve, then you can get up to 2.5 times more. I think it's like emissions or platform revenue or something like that. So the idea is like you lock it up for longer periods of time and you get more rewards. V platypus, so that's platypus finance, the other stable swap on Avalanche. They also have a similar kind of mechanism, but it's not involving lockup. So instead, if you stake your platypus, you get V platypus, and having V platypus allows you to earn boosted APRs on any of the pools you stake in, which is like, any of the stable coin pools like USDC, USDT, all that kind of stuff. But the second that you unstake your platypus from V platypus, then you lose all those boosted rewards. So the whole point of these Vnomics, right? The whole point is just to make people, just to take coins out of circulation, right? So you can reduce sell pressure. So whether you actually lock it up like Curve has done it, or whether you penalize people for unstaking, which is what Platypus has done.
Is that a soft cooldown? What is a soft cooldown?
I don't know what you're talking about, actually.
Okay, yeah. It says soft cooldowns implemented to encourage longer term staking, but yeah, no worries.
Yeah, so I mean, for our VJO, for example, it's going to be very similar to Platypus. We're not going to implement a lockup. We're going to implement some kind of penalty where if you unstake, then you lose all your boosted APR and you have to earn them back again over time.
Gotcha. Okay.
How do you balance chasing the latest tokenomics trend with kind of not putting your token at risk? Because I think, we've definitely seen this over the last 6 months. I mean, look at Ohm. When Ohm took off, Wonderland took off, that was the hottest thing ever. There were all the Ohm forks and everybody was super confident in it until 2 months ago. And then, the wall came clattering down. So I guess, how do you, I think the real reason for this is that this field is so new. There's so little there's so little data, and so experiments just have can have very unexpected results, and it's hard to tell true positive results from like false positives, true negatives, false negatives, and we don't have the science of this. Nobody's figured this out. So I guess what's your approach to kind of balancing all those concerns?
Yeah, I would say that this is what I hate about tokenomics. Like, there's so much of it is based on narrative, right? Like, I remember when everyone was in love with Forks DeFi 2.0, they were saying, oh, like DeFi 1.0 is dead. They're all farm and dump tokens. DeFi 2.0 is the future. There's no farming and dumping. It's all about protocol and liquidity, blah, blah, blah. I mean, 3 months later, it was still a farm and dump token. Let's be honest, right? You're staking your own fork to get this like 10-digit APY. You're basically farming, and eventually someone's going to dump, and they're going to dump them because then you realize there's profits. But for a while, people, and not just like any random people, like big accounts, like big influencers, they were really pushing this narrative that DeFi 2.0 has solved DeFi 1.0. I'm glad that it's finally been, people see that this is just a narrative. I mean, I don't have anything against forks, but I do hate the idea that a lot of tokenomics is based on narrative. I'm not gonna lie. So how do we approach it at Trader Joe? I would say that the one thing that we do a lot is that we don't rush into things. Sometimes that bites us in the ass because in crypto, you have to move fast. If you take more than 3 months to build something, by the time you finish building it, but it could be that whatever you're building is just not in trend anymore. And that's, timing is everything in this market. So we don't like to rush into things. We like to be thoughtful in everything we do, right? So, we recognize that there was a need to change our tokenomics, but we're like, okay, let's think carefully. Like, obviously people love V-Curve, right? Because out of all the DeFi 1.0 projects, like, Uniswap, Aave, and all that kind of stuff, like the Curve token has performed, has actually defied, has actually been able to go up despite all the other tokens in that category going down in the past year. At the same time, so people love V-Curve, but we also decided, okay, who else has implemented V-Curve and how have they done, right? There's been a lot of other projects. I think, Cream Finance, for example, they have Ice Cream. There's also Pickle Finance, they have the Dill token. And then we look at, okay, some of these are kind of like Cream is a lending protocol, not really comparable to a DEX. Who else has done it? And that's DEX. And there was a couple. There was Spirit Swap, that's on Phantom. They have they call it InSpirit, which is their V-Curve version of Spirit. And we kind of decided, with Curve, for example, why does V-Curve work well with Curve? Well, the whole point of V-Curve is that you can vote on the emissions to go into each pool. Now, people love the idea of voting on every pool, but is it always a good thing? Do you risk emissions going to the wrong pools? Now, there's an argument, and we thought about this carefully, like in Curve, every pool is stable coin pool. So they're kind of like all the same category. At DEX on the other hand, you have different kinds of pools. You have your AVAX majors like AVAX BTC, AVAX ETH. You have your stable coin pools, and then you have like your altcoin pools. And so a DEX is different because you have different categories, right? And the nice things about V-Curve, I think the reason why V-Curve became so popular is not because of V-Curve itself, but because you could bribe people to vote for certain pools, and that's the whole basis behind convex and bribing. I'm kind of like rambling on right now, but like we decided, okay, we like this idea, but it doesn't apply to every single pool in a DEX. It makes the most sense to us, at least, for AVAX stablecoin pools. So that's why with VJO, we're going to allow people to vote on pools, on the emissions to pools, but only for AVAX stablecoin ones. So that means AVAX USDT, AVAX USDC, AVAX MIM, people know about our drama with Wonderland, and they were claiming that we didn't give them enough missions for AVAX Mim. Well, with VJO, if Wonderland wants to come back and get more missions, they can bribe VJO holders to get more missions for AVAX Mim. And so we've kind of taken the V-curve model, but adapted it to a more AMM DEX flavor.
Well, that's exciting, man. That sounds really cool. Nice work. It's going to be interesting
thank
to
you.
see what comes out of that, and then what that inspires, right? Who is going to do the next tweak on your model? Now somebody's going to say we were inspired by the Joe curve or something.